All right, so here first off, the first thing we're going to look at are some of your buttons down here. We've kind of turned some of these on and off before, but now let's take a look at specifically what some of these do. Some of you may already know what they do, but we're just going to go over these here somewhat quickly. All right, so first off, this first button here. These are ones that automatically turn back on every time you start a new drawing. I don't love that it turns back on because I usually turn this one back off. This first one is called the grid. It's that little pattern that's on the screen. Out here, I know on the projector it's a little bit hard for you to see mine, but when you click that, it turns it off so there's no grid there, or there is a grid there. Even though it is somewhat hard for you guys to see it there on the screen, I think it kind of distracts sometimes from the drawing that I'm trying to show you. So I usually try to turn that grid off and leave it off, and that's usually where I work. It's up to you whether you leave that on or off. Whatever you'd like there is just fine. It used to be back in the day, early with CAD, the grid, when you have it on, it would stay at the same pattern, but this one, it changes with you when you zoom in and out. So to me, it really doesn't help you out much. It used to be if you'd set your grid to 1 inch, you could really quickly tell that you drew a 3-inch long line just by glancing down and looking at the grid, and it's a good little check visually. But anymore, that really doesn't help you out so much. All right, so enough about grid there. Next is snap. So go ahead and do this with me and turn your snap on by turning that one on there. The first thing when you turn snap on, you really don't notice anything different about the drawing. But if you enter into a command, let's say line, so let's go L-enter. And now again, depending on where you're zoomed to on the drawing, you really still don't see much. But zoom in, if you're zoomed out a ways, zoom in and keep moving your mouse around. Zoom in and zoom in more and notice how your mouse jumps around on the screen. Notice how my cursor jumps around a bunch. That's because I'm zoomed in a long way. My mouse is locking into every half-inch increment. So if I start a line command here, L-enter for line. Oh, actually, sorry, I was already on line. If I pick my start point for the line command, notice it jumps every inch, or every half of an inch. Back, again, early on in AutoCAD, this was somewhat useful for making drawings. But anymore, with all the other things they've done on CAD, this is not real useful because not often are you drawing everything on a specific increment. Again, to make a nice standard shape like that, it's kind of nice jumping around there, I guess. But more often than not, it's going to cause you more headaches than what it's going to help you with the snap on. So again, that was snap on, and you have to be in a command for that to take effect. So you have to be in like the line command. And again, you have to zoom in there quite a ways to make that actually noticeable. All right, so there's a little bit about snap. All right, so again, I'm going to turn that one off because, again, snap to me is a little more of a pain. We're going to go to our next one there. The next one is called ortho. So if you hover over that one, it's called ortho. Let's go ahead and go back into our line command and pick a start point out there on the screen. And with your start point picked out there, notice what ortho does. Ortho only lets you draw a line to the left or the right, or straight up and down. It restricts your cursor to only go on those. You cannot draw a line at an angle. Again, if you're just making a kind of a box drawing here, you know, some sort of a grid like this, I guess ortho could be useful. But again, most often anymore, I almost never use ortho. They really just don't see that ortho is a huge help for you. Again, when you want to make a straight line, it is nice, but there's better ways of doing it now with AutoCAD. And that better way is this next button we're going to look at. The next one over is called Polar. So click on Polar and turn it on. And I'm going to reset a setting here so it's the same as yours. With Polar on, when you go into our line command and pick a start point, notice now it locks into that straight line, but I also can draw any angle line I want. So if I want to draw a line at an angle, that's great. But then when I want to go straight, it locks into that dashed line and it will stay locked in as long as I'm close to being straight. So it's kind of nice there. You can do that. Put some angled lines in here. And then put your straight lines back in. And go back to an angled line if you want an angled line or whatever you want there. So again, pretty handy there. That one you actually will use a lot. Majority of the time, I keep Polar turned on and keep it on pretty much all the time. Sometimes I will turn it off for certain things that are a little bit easier to select, but most of the time it's left on. All right, with Polar also. If you hit the down arrow there next to Polar, you can do some other settings to it. pick that next setting, which is 45, 90, 135. Now with that setting, it also lets you lock in every 45 degrees. So you can lock in at 0 here, 45, 90, 135, 180, 225, 270, and 315 over here. So it lets you lock in at all those angles. And again, that's typically where I'll keep my polar set, is on that next setting. Okay, so then I can put some nice 45-degree angles in there, which is kind of awesome. Oops, got messed up on that last bit. Now, one more little tidbit on polar here. The last setting down there at the bottom is the 5-degree. I really don't like that one because notice here, it locks in everywhere. It's such a minute amount of change in a 5-degree angle change. It's hard to draw a line anywhere that's not a 5-degree. Unless you come way out here and have a long line, then sometimes you can click in between out to here. But as long as you're close in here, you're locked into drawing basically every 5 degrees. So again, I don't like that. I usually keep my polar set just again there on that 45-degree angle. All right, enough about polar there. The next one we're going to skip for a while. We'll do that in a few weeks probably when we're doing an isometric drawing. But the next one over, we're going to look at it, which is object snap tracking. This is one you guys will use often. Really, I'll probably leave that on. I leave that on a lot of the time when I draw. I'm going to turn it on and off 50-50. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn our O-snap, our normal O-snap back on also. So normal O-snap's on, and our object tracking is on. What the object tracking does is this. You may have already played with this some, or already know what this does. It's here when I'm drawing this rectangle. If I come up here and I hover over top of this line, and now pull down, notice how it tracked it straight down there. So now I can end that box up perfectly. Again, how that works, let me come over here to the side. I can draw two sides of this. When I'm drawing this third side here, if I want this line to equal that other one, I come over here and I hover over that line, drag it across, it stays locked into that position. You can come back here to straight and draw that across like so. You also don't so much have to draw it straight. You know, I could come up here if I wanted to draw an angled line. I could come to here and draw it straight across, and it still finishes up just perfectly with that. It is a handy little part of it that, again, once you get used to using that, you'll use that a lot. That, again, is a very, very handy little thing to use. All right, everybody have a chance to play with that just a little bit. Okay. So that's the big part about those. Now, basically what we're going to do is, that was all just kind of playing around. Let's clear off our screen, get rid of all that stuff. I'm just going to erase it out. And now we're going to be ready for our first drawing. For our first drawing, what I want you to do is draw a circle on your screen, somewhere over there to the left. Once you draw that circle, then do some lines across that look similar to that. So I'm just going to put some zigzag lines across here, maybe 6 or 8, or maybe it looks like 8 or 10, actually, what I did there. 8 or 10 lines that zigzag across like that. I'll pause there. Okay, so now what we're going to do with this is, sometimes when you're drawing an object, you want these lines or this circle, you want it cut off just at this exact point. Well, you can't do that unless you use a different command, and that command is called trim. So if you go trim, TR is a shortcut for trim. When you type trim, it asks, select the cutting edge. We're going to select that circle as my cutting edge. So I'm going to click on the circle and then hit enter. Now what it asks is select the object to trim. All right, so what I want to trim is I want to trim off this line here. So I'm going to click on it. And then this line here. And then this one. So on and so forth. Just do the ones on this one side for now. So I trimmed off all of those. Now there is another way, using our skills that we learned earlier, which was the crossing box. If I wanted to trim off all these on this side, if I pick it with a crossing box like this, I can trim all those all in one step. So there is trim, kind of the way that works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo, and I'm going to do it one more time here if you missed that. So you have all your lines here. To do that quickly, you go TR for trim, select your circle, hit enter, pick all those there. That quickly, that easily, you got all those chopped off there. Yes, we have made Jupiter. So there we go. All right. Once you've got that, we're going to do something a little bit differently here beside. Beside this, we're going to draw a circle, a small little circle, something about like so. Then I want some other circles concentric to that circle. Concentric means they have the same center point. So with my O-snap-on and center point pick, I can pick the center of that circle. I'm going to draw another circle there that's concentric to that one. Another one, something like that. And another one, something like that. For a total of 4 circles there. Once you have those 4 circles drawn, do the same little zigzag, or similar at least, zigzag little lines across there that we had before. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, we're going to use the same drawing, we're going to do 3 different things to it. So what I want you to do is I want to make a copy of this drawing. So we're just going to go CO for copy, or CP is copy, either one's a shortcut for copy, CO or CP. When it asks me what I want to copy, I want to copy all these things. So I'm just going to pick a crossing around that entire box, or around that entire object, and click. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me for a base point. I just go out there and I grab onto the center of it. So I'm going to grab the center of that circle, and then copy one to here, and another one to, say, there. And then hit escape. So I got 2 copies of that, so I have 3 total of those objects out there. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom here to this first one, and we're going to trim a little bit on it. This time when I trim, I'm going to hit TR for trim, and hit enter. When it says select the cutting edges, you can select more than one edge as the cutting edge. So for example, I'm going to select this outside circle, and the next circle, both. So I select both of those circles as my cutting edges. I'm going to hit enter or spacebar, and then just look up here and watch what I trim. So first, I'm going to do the same thing I did before, trim all these over here on the left, or sorry, right, and then trim all these over here on the left. And then next, I'm going to come here on the inside of it, and I'm going to trim out a little teeny tiny narrow crossing of all these ones in the middle. So what that leaves me with is my lines are just left in this ring in between here. All right? So I'm going to hit escape and let you do that on your own. If you need to see it again, I will do it once more up here and talk you through it. So once again, trim. Pick these 2 as the edges, enter, select them all there, select them all there, and then select right down the middle. And trim those off. For our next one, we're going to trim again. So we're going to go TR for trim, hit enter once. I'm going to select the inside 2 circles this time, the 2 smallest circles. And again, going to do the exact same thing. I just want you to see what it does differently. So I'm going to trim off this side over here. I'm going to trim off this side over here. And then I'm going to go there in the middle and trim off these in the middle. Now again, notice what it did differently. With the different cutting edges selected, this time it didn't trim these lines at all, because these lines at the top and the bottom didn't cross those 2 circles. The other lines that did, it trimmed them off, but the other ones, it really didn't do anything to them at all. Okay? One last one we're going to do to this one. This last one I'm going to show you is the way that you're probably going to use trim 9 out of 10 times, which is just hit TR for trim, and then enter, enter. You hit enter twice afterwards. The first time you hit enter, it accepts the trim mode, just for selecting cutting edges. The next one is selects all. So everything out there is recognized as a cutting edge. So if I hit enter again, now I can come up here and I could trim off this circle if I want to do here. I can trim off this circle here. I can trim off this line in between here. But every single edge is recognized as a cutting edge. So I can trim off whatever I want. I'll chop off little pieces all over the place. I'm again going to do it similar to what I have been doing it. I'm going to trim all the ones on this side. Whoop, all the ones on this side. And then I'm going to skip this middle section. I'm going to trim off the ones in here, all the way around on this circle. And then last but not least, I'm going to go out there in the middle and trim out that, whatever's in there in the middle. All right, that one doesn't cross there, so that. So I trimmed off basically every other one on that one by using that. But again, if I wanted to, I can come up here and I can trim off this top half of it, or this bottom half, or these little pieces in between, because every edge is recognized as a cutting edge. So I'm going to hit enter and accept that. Okay, so last but not least, very similar to the copy command that we did before, is we're going to now use the move command. So it's just M and enter for move. I'm going to select this third one that we did here, the entire thing.